Praise and Condemnation. Twilight arched her back as she woke up, sheets tumbling off her body into a heap on the ground. Even though the room she had been provided was almost the size of the ground floor of her library, and the bed far larger and more comfy than the one she had aboard the Sanguinium Martyrs, she was still having trouble sleeping. Every one of her joints and muscles seemed out of place, crackling as she tried stretching out. The window on the far side of the room would have given Twilight an impressive view of the palace and terra beyond, but all she could see was smog and a few blinking lights to direct air traffic. Still, Twilight found herself staring at the smog cloud as she got dressed. Perhaps it was in the vain hope that she would see something, anything beyond the veil, or perhaps it was merely a reminder of just where she was. Who knows how far from home, in a universe that by all accounts wants to kill me, and nothing secure to fall back on, Twilight thought as she finished the last of the clasps to her new robes. At least I still have the princess. Fully dressed, Twilight stepped away from the window and out into the hall, taking a moment to catch her breath as she adjusted to the change in the air of the main hallway. For all its splendor, the Imperial Palace seemed rather short on several basic needs, consistent air filtration being one of them. The hallway stretched on for as far as Twilight could see, disappearing into a haze of shadow and what she hoped was incense smoke. It had been a flurry of activity since the meeting with the High Lords. Mashes and his team had disappeared, leaving Twilight alone amongst a sea of curious and reverent passers-by. Sister Naomi and her squad had helped, forming up around Twilight as they escorted her further into the palace, but in the process Celestia had disappeared within her own crowd of adoring subjects. Not even her appearances back in Equestria drew in such fervor, but then, directly worshipping Celestia as a god was more of the exception, not the norm. Twilight started off down the hall to her left, the sound of her shoes against the floor echoing far down the hall. Windows to the outside world were soon replaced by statues and tapestries, images of heroes and leaders long since past looming over her. The most prominent, and perhaps eye-catching, was one of what Twilight assumed was Celestia's old form, a powerful man standing triumphantly over a fallen dragon. Whoever had made the tapestry had obviously taken great care in creating the piece, dozens of minute details hidden away beneath every line and curve of the figures. Still, the stern gaze of the Emperor sent a chill down Twilight's back, and she quickly averted her eyes as she continued forward. In turning about, she almost smacked into sisters Ruth and Judith coming the other way. "Oh, I'm sorry," Twilight said, backing up slightly from the sororitas. "The fault is all ours," Ruth replied, giving a quick shake of her head. "We were the ones not paying attention, and in our inattentiveness we failed to notice you had been wandering outside your quarters." "I noticed her," Judith said, but Ruth ignored her. "Regardless, we have come to ask you if there is anything you need, and if, Ruth's face flushed red before she mumbled the rest of her request. "Am I really that intimidating?" Twilight thought before giving the sororitas a smile. Enough time spent around Fluttershy had taught her how to deal with shy people. "There's no need to rush," she said. "Just ask me what you want when you're ready. She's usually the more forceful one," Judith chirped. "Sister Naomi usually keeps her held back when we need to make requisitions." There was an incident with an administratum adept that got out of hand. Ruth's face flushed red, only this time from anger instead of embarrassment. "He was impeding the holy work of our sisters," she cried, turning back to face Judith. "Had he continued, all of those people would have been lost to the cultists. You still didn't have to brain him with his servo skull, though," Judith countered. "The poor thing wasn't doing anything wrong." "Hey now, there's no need to start arguing," Twilight said, raising her hands to catch the sororitas' attention. "We're all still friends, right? So maybe we can just set this aside for now and I can help you with whatever it was that you wanted me to help with." There was a pause as Ruth's earlier anger faded. "You are right," she straightened up and gave a small nod. "Apologies, my lady, it was inappropriate for me to act in such a way." "That's all right." Twilight's smile was replaced with confusion for a moment. "Why my lady? You're the Emperor's personal student," Judith said. "Or, I guess it's Empress now. But as her personal student, you carry the same standing and power as one of the High Lords themselves." I do." That's how Sister Naomi explained it when we were debriefed following the Empress' return. Ruth added. As such, we are required to show you the same respect as we would any High Lord of the Imperium, even if they did call the Empress a heretic and blasphemer. Oh, there was another pause before Twilight spoke again. Well, you don't really have to be so official with me. Really? Both sisters asked. Yes. I mean, sure I might have been trained by the Empress, but I'm still just another human like you two. You can just call me Tara if you'd like. There was another pause before Judith giggled. Is there something wrong with that? I'm not used to these sorts of things, and there are times when I kind of stumble over what I'm supposed to do and I embarrass myself. It's not that. Judith said. It's just. Tara. No disrespect, but your parents must have really been seeking the Empress' favor when they named you that. At this, Ruth responded by slapping Judith in the back of the head, a metallic clang ringing off the sororitas' helmet. How dare you mock the Empress' chosen student? Ruth cried. I'm not trying to mock her, but it's Tara, and she's on Tara. This received another slap from Ruth. Okay, maybe I did deserve that one. Sometimes it's a wonder why you haven't been smote for your antics. Ruth grumbled, taking a moment to compose herself before speaking again. Forgive Judith. She's. Judith. I understand. Twilight replied. Was there something you wanted to ask me earlier? Oh, why yes. Ruth nodded a few times before speaking. We were hoping that, if you are free from your duties to the Empress, of course, we were hoping that you would join us for our morning prayer. There was a pause as Ruth's blush returned. We understand if you say no. Far be it for us to impede on the work of the Empress, and as you are her student that work must be very great indeed. As I think on it, perhaps this was a bad idea. Sorry for disturbing you, my lady. Ruth hurriedly bowed and made to leave, but Twilight stepped forward to stop her. Wait, she said. There's no need to be embarrassed. I would love a chance to join you and your sisters. Really? Ruth asked, before trying her best to compose herself. I mean, thank you for honoring us with your presence. If you would please follow us, we will conduct you to our quarters. Twilight gave a small nod as she fell in step with the sisters, the tapestries and paintings flicking by as they walked. I can keep working at trying to make them less formal, Twilight thought. It couldn't hurt, could it? So, Ruth, Twilight started. You said that you've always served your, order is the right term. Yes. Ruth nodded. I never knew my parents. The sisters always told me that my mother was a young underhiver who could not care for me, so she gave me to the church in hopes that I could live a better life. The first words I spoke were praises to the Emperor, the first texts I read were the writings of great saints and heroes. She looked over to Twilight. But I would never trade it for an instant. My sisters and I have done good work, battling against those that would see the Imperium in ruins, and even if I must give my life in service it will ensure that others do not have to do the same. Oh, there was a pause before Twilight spoke again. I can see why having this opportunity to see the Emperor. Empress. I can see why it means so much to you. She's a bit more vocal than most, Judith said. We all wept for joy when we learned we were being brought to Terra, but Ruth wept for 2 days after we got our orders, and again when the Empress revealed herself, and again when Judith, Ruth growled. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. You're just very fervent in expressing your faith, and that's a good thing. Ruth looked away, though at least she was calm again. Twilight now turned her attention towards Judith, the other sister shrinking away slightly. I'm not judging my sister's faith, she is a loyal servant of the Imperium, probably even a better servant than I will ever be. I'm not judging you. Twilight replied. You just seem a bit scattered. Ruth suggested. Judith has always been like that, ever since she showed up in the barracks brimming with delusions of grandeur. It shouldn't be right to place so much optimism in her life and abilities. My parents always taught me that the Emperor was like a stern father, Judith said. He may discipline you and place you in trials, but he is always doing so for the betterment of you and your family, and he is ready to catch you should you stumble. Though she still wore her helmet, it was not hard for Twilight to tell that Judith was smiling. It always made a little more sense than the priests who said we were only martyrs in training. Ruth gave a small huff at this, but otherwise made no comment. So, you knew your parents? Twilight asked. They worked to maintain the shrines on my home world. Judith said. That was fine, but I felt the Emperor calling me to new pastures, so when the order passed through our hab block, I walked up to the leading sister and asked if she would make me a canoness. She laughed at me, but said if I worked at it I could become a canoness one day. Next thing I know I've joined the order, and with Sister Naomi's tutelage I like to think that I'm well on my way to becoming a canoness. The day you become a canoness is the day every single heretic and traitor drops dead. Ruth muttered. Oh, that would be nice. Maybe helping the Empress might be just what I need. Ruth still seemed on edge, but Judith's cheer was unwavering. Twilight was unsure of what to make of the sister, but she seemed harmless enough that interacting with her would not lead to too much trouble. But when has that been true in your life, Twilight? The section that they moved into now was more Spartan than the halls around Twilight's quarters. There were still depictions of old battles and heroes, but they were much smaller and simpler in design, and much fewer in number. The hall was lit solely by small flickering lights. The choral music the Imperium seemed to favor was certainly louder as they went on. The two sisters seemed calmer, but like Mashes and his company they seemed adept at hiding their emotions from Twilight as they continued. At least I got to see a little emotion earlier. The sisters led Twilight to a smaller room just off of a second hall. Ruth was the first to enter, Judith taking time to remove her helmet to reveal a young, round-faced woman with twin fleur-de-lis tattoos over her eyebrows. We've returned, and brought the Empress student with us. Oh, there was a pause as a third sister stepped from the dark. This one was leaner than her fellows, her hair tied back in a neat bun, and she greeted Twilight with a warm smile and a bow. Welcome, my lady. It is an honor to have a chance to speak with you in person. Thanks, Twilight returned the smile. What's your name? Rebecca, my lady. Rebecca rose back to her full height before continuing. I assume you are here for morning prayer. Have you eaten? My sister and I have prepared a small meal, but there should be enough for you as well. Oh, I wouldn't want to intrude. Please, I insist. Rebecca reached forth to take Twilight's hand, leading her further into the room. I do not wish you to go without, my lady, though as the Empress student I am sure you are attended to in the highest regard. I would like a real apple sometime, but I've come to avoid keeping my hopes up for now. I've managed. Twilight said. But you don't have to call me lady all the time. Tara will be just fine. A short snicker came from behind Twilight, followed by the sound of Ruth's armor-clad hand smacking Judith's skull. Well then, Tara, I hope you enjoy the modest arrangements we sisters have prepared. Rebecca led Twilight to a small circle of 5 mats set next to a shrine lit with 5 candles. Judith and Ruth took the spots at the far left and right respectively, while Rebecca bade Twilight to sit in the center before taking a seat between her and Ruth. Sister Naomi is speaking to the ecclesiarch currently, so you may have her seat until she returns, Rebecca said. Oh, thank you. Twilight took a moment to make herself comfortable before speaking again. Is this normal for you? No, Ruth shook her head. Our morning rituals are usually conducted in a large mess hall with hundreds of other sisters. It's a rare moment when we get a chance to sit and pray together, and even then Naomi usually makes it a point to settle logistics after we have given our praise to the Emperor. Empress. Judith corrected. Right. Ruth furrowed her brow. That is not going to get easier anytime soon. Don't worry, dear, Rebecca placed a hand on Ruth's shoulder. You are a sister of the Order of Our Martyred Lady, and one of the most devout young women I have met. I doubt you will stumble over a simple change in titles. I know there was a pause just as a fourth sister stepped into the room. Oh, we have a guest. Twilight turned and saw another sister carrying a small platter of food, one who looked almost exactly like Rebecca save for shorter hair, a stockier build, and a fleur-de-lis on her left cheek. Hello, my lady. My name is Veronica, and I suppose you have already met my sisters. Yes. Twilight nodded. Although, are you and Rebecca related? Twins. Rebecca said. The firstborn in our home in nearly a millennia. We were always considered blessed by the emperor, so when the order arrived searching for recruits were among the first sought out. They decided separating us would be detrimental, so we were placed in the same training regiment and eventually the same squad. As we have saved the lives of many of our sisters, and each other, I would say that the Empress does smile upon us. Veronica took her spot next to Twilight's left and set the platter down. Now, would you like to say a short blessing? Twilight froze. The religion of the Imperium was certainly fascinating, but aboard Masha's ship their rituals were conducted in private and Twilight had never had the chance to study them too closely. Furthermore, the sisters were a different aspect of the Imperium than Masha's and his followers. What if something they found detestable was something the latter considered the norm? Is something wrong, Tara? Rebecca asked. I, Twilight's face flushed red as her nervousness welled up. Sorry, I don't know what to say, I've never done this before. Silence reigned in the room, the sisters looking to one another in surprise and confusion. Never? Judith asked. No, I mean, nothing like this, I just got so wrapped up in my studies that I got distracted. It was a lame excuse, but it was the truth. But, Ruth started. You are the student of the Empress. How can you not know blessings? Twilight had no time to respond before Veronica pulled her into a tight embrace. Oh, you poor thing, she cried, holding Twilight like a mother would hold a crying child. To be so close to the Empress light, and yet so far at the same time, that sounds like the worst form of confusion that can be inflicted on any of mankind. I guess, Twilight stammered as Veronica pulled away. This will not stand, a student of Her Holiness should not be so blind. She looked now to the other sororitas. Sisters, it must be our solemn duty to instruct Tara here in our ways and prayers. She must not be one to venture into the torrents of the galaxy without the light of the Empress to guide her. Yes. Rebecca nodded. I have some of my old hymnals from my training, she can borrow those if she would like. You really don't have to do all this for me. Twilight started again, only to be silenced by a finger to her lips. We sisters of the Order of our Martyred Lady are trusted to protect and guide the faithful of humanity against the terrors of the galaxy, Veronica said. It matters not if you are an underhiver, or the greatest of lords, we all have a duty to the people of the Imperium, and in this form that duty is to make sure you are ready to stand against all that would see mankind undone. Twilight hesitated for a moment. She chewed her lip, unsure of what to say as the sisters looked on. At Celestia's side she would be kept busy, and certainly her mentor would do her utmost to protect her. But then, she had always loved the chance to learn, and there might be times when Celestia could not always watch over her. Thank you. Twilight said finally. I would love to learn more about you and your lives. This received another squeeze from Veronica. That's wonderful, Tara, she said. We'll talk to Sister Naomi when she returns, but I'm sure she would be happy to teach you. Teach who what? The voice of Naomi cut through the sisters' conversation. All eyes turned to the Sister Superior as she stepped into the room. She was still wearing her helmet, but she did look less intimidating without her weapons. Oh, I did not realize the Empress student was present. We were just planning on teaching Tara a little more about our order, Rebecca said. By your permission, of course, Sister Naomi. Not by mine, Naomi said, stepping further into the room as the sisters and Twilight rose to their feet. I just spoke with the Ecclesiarch, he has reasoned that the Empress student should be placed under our protection, as there may be times when the Empress' great works will not require the student's presence. Oh, Twilight blinked. I was actually just thinking that over. Thank you. Please, there is no need for thanks, Naomi raised her hand. We merely do the duty charged to us. Now, I would like a moment's rest, please, we may discuss arrangements once I am ready. Twilight could do nothing but give a small nod as Naomi slipped past her into the adjoining room. There was a pause before she turned back to the other sisters. She seemed nice, she said, mentally slapping herself for letting her sarcasm slip through. Does she always wear her helmet around? It is different with Naomi, Ruth said. She always wears her helmet when surrounded by those not of our squad. It would be best if we do not discuss it without her. Oh. I can respect that. Twilight took a moment to straighten herself out before Rebecca spoke. She will come around though, the sister said before smiling. Now let us eat. I've always found it difficult to focus on an empty stomach. Mashes had been surprised to find out there was a tavern within the Imperial Palace. It was obviously not in the original design, perhaps an old storage room some bored High Lord had reserved for a private stash, or pilgrims making use of some misplaced surplus. Whatever the case, the tavern was run down, held together with corrugated metal and old planks, and smelled vaguely of promethium. And yet that was where Mashes found himself, answering the question of what happened when a Hospitaller, a Psyker, and two Valhallans walked into a bar. Alexis was in the center, flanked by Nikolai and Bianca. The trooper's head rested on the bar, a collection of alcoholic beverages surrounding him. Angelique was not far from Bianca, idly spinning her chair about as she hummed some old drinking song. I go away to pray for 10 minutes, and this is what happens? Mashes took a moment to compose himself before approaching his team. Lord Mashes, Bianca said, straightening up as Mashes entered. I apologize, but I needed to make sure all of my charges were accounted for. Is it Inquisitor? Alexis slurred, weakly trying to raise his head. Good. I'm a die now, he'll help. How long has he been here? Mashes asked, taking a seat next to Nikolai. 2 hours. Nikolai replied. Sister Bianca arrived for the latter half of that time. Fortunately, I've managed to keep him to weaker drinks. How'd pious die, chopped up or something by Horus? Alexis hiccuped. Th's no fun. Th's how'll be. And, why has Alexis decided to get drunk in the Imperial Palace? She was there. Alexis pulled his head up, his hands hovering in front of him. Had a cute smile, nice round face, great rack, you know how long I's been since I've had a girl. The desert remains dry, and sees no rain even for 10 seasons. Angelique sang before spinning again. Alexis slumped forward. Now Empress gonna kill me cause I hit on her student, the Valhallan moaned. Jews shoot me, Lord, is better way. Mashes sighed. The last thing he needed was for a drunken henchman to make a further mess of himself. I'm certain the Empress needs you alive more than she needs you dead. Mashes said. And it matters not, we have work to do. All work. Always work. Angelique murmured. The Inquisition wants us to hold here and continue our service to the Empress. Which means watch her to make sure she is who she is. Nikolai finished. Exactly. Mashes gave a small sigh before continuing. I am certain that she is the Emperor reborn, but there are those who remain uncertain, certainly those that are capable of swaying plenty of people. Maybe one of those Eldar will come and kill me. Who? Bianca asked, looking over Alexis' slumped form. The Phalanx just left the Armageddon system, and the main Minotaur battle fleet entered the Segmentum Solar 2 weeks ago. Mashes looked ahead. If she is truly the Emperor, she will be able to convince the Adeptus Asteroutes with no trouble. And if she doesn't? Hopefully the Custodes and Terra's garrison can placate the Asteroutes long enough for the Empress to win them over. Mashes sighed again. Have faith, though, you all saw what she showed us, and perhaps the Space Marines can be convinced. Maybe she'll do pious thing again. I'm volunteered. The Raven will speak for the light. Angelique said. Mashes watched as the Psyker rose to her feet, staring off into the distance. I can feel the Raven. He waits within the sun's embrace, yet he cannot see her light. It will be the mare that leads him in from the rain. Angelique, Bianca placed a hand on the girl's shoulder. Your prophecies are not needed right now. Wait. Mashes waved Bianca off before approaching Angelique. I've noticed that you refer to the Empress as the light. Is that correct? He asked, yet he is all-knowing. Angelique rolled her head around. The eye sees all. Why ask a small spark for the answer? Because I want to know, who is the Raven? There was a long pause, Angelique blinking at Mashes for a few moments. Ask the light, and she will answer. The mare will follow to the Raven, and he will follow her into the light.